My name is Darren Draper. I'm here with Lorine, Ghabranious on March 6, 2011. Can you give me a brief summary of your educational background?
Sure. Well, I'm from the DC area, so I went to University of Maryland for undergrad. Graduated in 2003. I was a history major. Then I went to King's College in London for my master's degree in Human Values and Contemporary Global Ethics. I graduated there in 2008, and I've come back to the University of Maryland to get a public policy degree, graduate degree, MPP, and expected to graduate 2012.
I read that you were given the Majorie Cook Scholarship Award. Can you explain how you selected for that and how you feel afterwards?
Since I am from the state of Maryland, I was looking for ways to pay for me to come back to get my MPP. I saw that the Marjorie Cook was one of the awards that were awarded through the state of Maryland. Applied for that. It's for people who are going to be working towards the advancement of women. And since I want to work for international development, particularly the advancement of women and children, I applied for it. I had an interview while I was in Guyana via Skype, and then got selected. And pretty exciting to be selected. Some nice financial help and to pay for my graduate degree as well. So, okay.
When did you first learn about the Peace Corps?
I actually learned about the Peace Corps when I was in high school. My high school teacher was a former Peace Corps volunteer as well as a country director, and it was something that I had kept in mind for a while, since obviously high school. So just to follow up on that, I'd actually had my application open for about 5 years. I wanted to do it immediately after I graduated college. Wasn't 100% sure about it, and then so I kind of kept my application open for those entire 5 years, and finally, once I finished my graduate degree, since I want to do international development, a lot of the positions require 2 years within the field, and I felt like the Peace Corps would be a great way to not only be able to go out into the field, but have the support of the U.S. government. It has a name attached to it, and it was a fantastic experience. So.
Before leaving to join the Peace Corps, was there any risk or danger that you were notified about?
Yeah, actually, right before I went and joined the country that I was assigned to, Guyana, had a massacre about 3 months before where there was about 15 people killed. So it was something I was a little bit leery about, and the person was still on the run when we went down there. So that was something that was a little bit of a concern, but as I went down there, you know, I figured if there was a severe problem that I knew that the Peace Corps would have closed the program, so they weren't putting their volunteers at risk, so I wasn't that worried, but yeah.
I read that they stressed safety before you left. What type of things did they do to secure that you were safe?
Well, we had a 2-day training. I don't know that they do the 2 days anymore, but you do have staging before you go and become a Peace Corps volunteer, and that's within the U.S. And there they kind of stress all the different things that can happen to you in terms of, you know, making sure that you're aware of your surroundings, as well as just like different circumstances that you can put yourself in, and some of the cultural differences that you might be approached by. And also, once you're in country, you have it depends on the country that you go to, but it's usually a 2 to 3 month training period within the country, and there you have different security sessions as well. So you're definitely aware of your surroundings, you're aware of any of the past problems that the country may have faced in terms of volunteers. So they definitely make you aware of it, as well as give you some different tips in order to protect yourself as well.
You served over 2 years in Guyana as an educator in different communities. Can you tell me about a few of these communities you served in?
Sure. You're actually assigned to one community. I was lucky enough that I lived within close distance to a few different communities. So while I was primarily assigned to a coastal community, I was able to travel down to a few different communities where I worked in the different schools, because there were so many schools that were so close distance. And the program that I worked with a local NGO that did HIV education. So they had a program where they went to about 5 different local schools. So I just went along with them because that was something that I was interested in, and I went to the different schools and taught HIV education. But then I also did remedial reading and math with elementary school kids as well.
While in Guyana, what was the most interesting or frightening thing you ever experienced?
There wasn't a day that went by that it wasn't interesting, that is for sure. You know, I guess one of the craziest things that happened was my host father died while I was there, and that was just an intense cultural situation. Just learning, the women were just screaming at the top of their lungs. It went on for 13 days. So I didn't get any sleep because I was living with my host family at the time. So you'd have about 100 people come every day, and then they would stay until about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it kind of continued, and you had to cook for everybody. And it's a traditional Indian culture over there, which is a lot of people don't know about Guyana. It's about half Afro, half Indo, and so I lived with an Indo family, and so that was an intense few weeks. But yes, in terms of interesting, just every day there was something that I was like, wow. You just were constantly learning, which I thought was a pretty exciting thing.
All right. The new culture over there, how long did it take you to adjust to it?
They always say that in Peace Corps it takes you about a year to figure out just how to live within a new culture, and then the second year you kind of, able to do your projects. So it took about a good year for where I felt comfortable with my surroundings. I felt like I knew everything that was going on. You think like after a few months, you can see your progress, which is a cool thing. Like, after a few months you feel more comfortable than you did when you first came. After a few more months after that, you realize you didn't really know what you were talking about in those first few months. And then, after a year, you kind of just, I think, solidly get it. So.
Would you recommend others joining the Peace Corps?
Absolutely. I thought it was a fantastic learning experience. I learned so much about myself. You're able to kind of just be on your own. You learn, how to handle just sitting there by yourself, staring up at a roof for hours and hours a day. You're able to be out in the community and actually see how you're helping others. It's a fantastic way to go to see a new country that you wouldn't normally get to be able to see, and have that experience where you're actually immersed within a new culture. And I'm actually going back to the country. I'm still really good friends with everybody there, and it's just like it's become a part of me, and it's someplace that I consider home. So yes, absolutely, I recommend it to anybody.
All right, that was my next question. Would you go back? Did you answer that?
Hands down.
While you were there, anything you learned that helped you when you came back to America?
Patience. It's a kind of an uphill roller coaster, up and down. One day, it's between like an hour, 15 minutes you can be so happy, and the next 15 minutes you can be crying. So it's just an intense emotional roller coaster. With that, you just learn that things aren't going to always go as planned, and to kind of have like maybe a second, third backup plan, and just to take your time and to go slow. Like I appreciate the slower life now. Being an American, you're constantly on the go. But it's nice just to take a step back and realize that there's a lot more important things in life than that you thought before you left. So I think that was something that I've definitely tried to bring back with me, and appreciate the smaller things.
When you watch TV and you see these commercials where they be having young children from different countries, it's always sad and things like that. When you went there, was it what you expected, just like the commercials?
No. Actually, I found that people were genuinely happy. Guyana is an interesting place in the sense that it's very Americanized influenced. They watch U.S. TV. There's more people in the U.S. that are Guyanese than are in the actual country. So it's encouraged for everybody to kind of leave. So in that sense, it wasn't as isolated as maybe like an African country would be, where they don't have so much connection to the U.S. There was a strong connection to the U.S. But I think people were genuinely happy in their lives, and people weren't thinking like there wasn't. And also with Guyana, the disparity between like the rich and the poor wasn't really as intense as a lot of countries are. It was mostly just plain. It was mostly just middle class, I would say. So there wasn't. Obviously there were those kids that were hungry, but I wouldn't say it was on par with Africa where they were starving kids. And I didn't really have any expectations when I kind of came in terms of watching the commercials and stuff. I just wanted to know that I was helping somebody, and working in the schools and seeing the kids genuinely excited to see you every day was great, and that was a nice feeling to have. So.
Okay, when you were there outside of work, were there anything you can do that made you feel that you had fun with outside of work?
Yeah, I would go. They had what they called the Jandies, which was a religious ceremony for the Hindus. So we'd go to those. I lived in relative closeness to other Peace Corps volunteers. There was probably about 5 other ones within like relative area for me. So we'd always get together on the weekends and hang out, and you'd kind of do like, there wasn't really much to do, but just like hanging out, cooking together, having fun. We would do that pretty much. So I saw people relatively often. And then there was always the cultural events, the weddings, the different country events that they had, the different country holidays that you'd go and celebrate. You could go into the main city every so often, maybe every few months or so, and then that gave you a little bit more exposure. You could go to the nicer restaurant and not have to cook all the time, or go to the pool at the ambassador's house. So we definitely had fun. Like, it wasn't that I was constantly working. It was a good mix of fun and work. So work hard, play hard, right?
The communities that you visited, did the people from the community, did they generally accept everyone?
Yes, they were very accepting. That was something that I wasn't sure how it was going to take. But from my experience, the Guyanese were extremely welcoming, and from other Peace Corps volunteers that I've talked to as well, their communities were just very welcoming to them. I think a lot of people really appreciate that, you have these young kids that are going out and giving 2 years of their lives away from their families and away from their friends, and able to work within the country. So I think that, they really, really do appreciate that, because you're giving up time and, where you could go off being with your friends, and you're giving it to trying to make, them feel better, their country better. And so I think they appreciated that time and that energy that we spent. So, in the most part, like, people were very, very welcoming.
Anything else you would like to
add? Are you considering joining Peace Corps?
I have. I actually looked at the application, and I'm thinking about it.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I recommend it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.